Good evening and welcome to Free to Heal. So tonight we are absolutely honored to have someone that is going to do what we're going to call one-on-ones. And tonight, Free to Heal, which is designed to help people heal from incarceration, to give information, practical tips on how to heal, as well as steps you can take that will help your reintegration back into society be less challenging. Understanding that it's going to be challenging no matter what. And understanding that you're going to face some things that are difficult, but there are people who have been successful at re-entering after long periods of time. And again, tonight, we're going one-on-one, and we are pleased to have Ms. Cheryl Ward to be with us tonight. I'm super excited because I was introduced to Cheryl, and she was, the first time Cheryl and I talked on the phone, we talked for 5 hours. Okay, the very first conversation. She has been so gracious with her time with me, and I'm so grateful to have her here. And what I'd like to first do is to give Cheryl an opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself. And I would like to go into, if it's okay with you, your incarceration history, whatever you feel comfortable to share about that. But if, at a minimum, how long you served and where. Because as you all are aware, in my audience, is that we are dealing with people who have been in state and federal penitentiary. They are not the same. They don't function the same. There are some elements that are the same, but they don't function the same. And so I'd like for you to talk about that. And we'll start with that, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for your friendship so far, and thank you for inviting me in. I served 17 years, 6 months, 13 days, and 1 hour from the time I was arrested in August 8th. That was August 8th of 1995. And I had to do 5 years after that of probation time, which to me just adds on to your sentence. And I've been off now since 2015. I just got off in 2019. I got off of probation. So, and I'm working at a New Way of Life as a benefits coordinator, and I'm a secretary for Can Do Clemency Foundation, where we fight for the first-time nonviolent offender to come out of federal prison, and that's where I did my time, was in federal prison.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that you're employed at a New Way of Life, and you didn't just come out of prison and walk into a career at a New Way of Life, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So can you talk to us about how you wound up at a New Way of Life?
Well, when you come out, probation officers will send you to different organizations that help with reentry. I went to Friends Outside, and Friends Outside had Ernie Melendrez and Sam Lewis that were running them then, and Ernie Melendrez sent me an application to Susan's Women Organizing for Justice, which is now Women Organizing for Justice and Opportunity, and I filled out the application and I got involved with them, and I won an internship, and I did the internship. They hired me part-time, and then they hired me full-time.
That's awesome. And the thing about that is there were things that were available to you that you signed up for and got involved in. So oftentimes when people come home, they feel like the mountain to climb is so high and they just don't do anything. And so you gotta get out there. You gotta be willing to be patient with the process. Reintegration is a process. It is not designed for you to succeed at. Understand that straight up. It's not designed for you to succeed. When you know that, you begin to function accordingly, right? So one of the things that you mentioned I want to double back to also is the probation for 5 years. So probation is another trap. It's another trap. Can you talk to me about your experience on probation? And the only reason I would even ask you to talk about it now is because you're done. Because I wouldn't even ask you to talk about probation while you were still on paperwork.
Okay, so they tell you that it's a setup for failure anyway. And I don't use drugs. I don't drink, I don't do anything. So it was like easy peasy for me to be on probation. But still, I had issues with my probation officer. She came to see me at A New Way of Life, and I said to her on the way out, what are the steps for me to start to get off of probation? She said, oh, I'm not gonna let you off.
Oh.
And I said, why? She said, because you never turn your reports in on time.
Oh my.
And I said, listen, I said, you never asked me to get a job. I said, I got 2. I go to therapy on my own and everything. So why would you like stop the process? I said, in the first place, I never asked you to let me off. I said, what's the process so I can work toward getting off?
Right.
And she said, well, I'm just saying because you never turned the paperwork in. Because I used to forget. I'm
Right.
trying to live my life out here, and the least thing I worried about was doing that report every month and stuff. So, but I asked for a replacement from her one time because she actually let one of my friends off probation, and then she told me that she didn't, and my friend said, I can show you the paperwork. And so I called her on it, and I said, you let so-and-so off? What are you doing talking to a formerly incarcerated? She didn't say, I call him formerly incarcerated.
Right.
She said, what are you doing talking to another person that's been in prison? I said, I don't talk to her. I said, my friend talks to her.
Right.
And so she got really angry, and I called in and asked for another probation officer. And then when I went to see her, she said, well, you asked for another person?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yes. So she was treating me really mean, and she made me come back again. And then she said to me, so are you still want somebody else? And I said, no, I can do you to November. And she got really upset.
That made her even more angry.
No, that really made her
absolutely.
angry.
I can tolerate you until then.
And so after I got home, her supervisor came to visit me, and she said, you know, that's kind of, well, first of all, she was another nationality.
Mm-hmm.
She said, and we're very outspoken. She said, I remember when you came in the office, you were outspoken. So it's just a difference of culture. She said, but you guys are going to be all right. You'll be all right. So I'm going to leave you with her. So, but it ended up being all right, because when she retired, she actually wrote me a beautiful email saying how I had been while I was under her watch.
Okay.
And that I was she was hoping that I would be very successful in whatever I chose to do.
Okay.
Because I didn't want her at my house anymore.
Wow. And see, people don't often know that there's a power dynamic, the same as a corrections officer. There's a power dynamic with a probation officer and a probationer. And oftentimes it is simply a matter of, in your case, you just didn't do what I wanted you to do, the way I wanted you to do it. So I'm going to, never mind the fact that if you look at the checklist of the things they want you to do, like you said, I got 2 jobs. You never even asked me to get a job. I got 2. I got a place to stay. I'm being productive. I'm helping other people. Because if you were at A New Way of Life, even if you were just in groups helping people and conversing with them, you're helping other people. But that wasn't sufficient for her. What she needed was for you to do what she needed you to do in order, mind you, to let you off of something that you have already proven you're not a risk to society. Probation is intended to protect society and keep a watch on people who need to be watched. You didn't need to be watched. Yet and still, and then she was lying to you. So again, it goes back to not everyone in authority tells the truth. We talked about that before. And we have to understand that, again, the system is not designed for you to succeed. And they keep making money as long as they can recycle us through the system. And so that is a challenge in and of itself, is that they think that's job security, but there's always going to be somebody that they can have on paperwork, right? So I'd like for you, if you could, to give a few tips to people and things that you believe you did that helped you to reintegrate more successfully.
I will, but I would like to say this also about probation, that when someone told me I was on supervised release and not probation. So when I said to her, am I on supervised release or I'm on probation? She said, you're on supervised release, but it doesn't really matter. And it does matter because when you do an application that says, are you on probation? I have been putting yes.
Okay.
And I wasn't on probation, and that's a big difference. That I could have put no because I'm just on supervised release.
Well, see, and that is a technical term that I think for my audience out there to know that you need to ask the difference between the two. Because it does matter. It matters in ways that the average citizen just doesn't know. They just don't know that there's a difference between the two. And if you're not on probation and you're not on paperwork and you're out, then that means there's some ways where things that you can do that you couldn't do if you were on probation. Very interesting and a very valid point.
Yes.
Very valid point, because I'm sure a lot of people get caught up in that way, right? So now also in terms of other tips and things that you feel like things that helped you, because you and I talked about this briefly. This is one I know for sure, is that re-entry should begin upon incarceration. We have to be thinking about what are we going to do when we get out, the minute you get incarcerated. And so what's your saying? What do you tell folks?
I used to say to the women that you need to have a plan, because if you don't have a plan, you're going to come back.
Okay.
You have to have something to do, and I really like that, how you say it needs to start the moment that you get there. And if you start it the moment you get there, that increases your hope inside of you.